Here we are with the Washington Post, and they have a new, very important piece out today that says, here's what voters will get if you cast your ballot based on a gas price. Okay. Americans are mad about inflation. They're especially outraged that the gasoline average now is $5 a gallon nationwide. And history suggests that they may act on that furor by voting the bums out. But voters should think carefully about what they'll get if they cast their ballot based on the gas price. Have you ever heard this ever before? The unexpected inflation tends to cause voters to punish incumbents at the polls. Yeah, exactly like it's supposed to. The cost of gasoline looms especially large in the public consciousness. It also weighs heavily on presidential approval ratings. But the president doesn't have some super secret special dial on his desk that can adjust gas prices. But many voters believe otherwise. Well, let me just give you a rundown of the history on this because it seems ironic coming from the press. 1996, the press reported, not Clinton's fault, it's capitalism and Newt Gingrich's fault. Then 2000, Bush blames Clinton, but it's really Bush's fault. This is typical of an administration that refuses to accept responsibility. Here's another one from CNN, 2001. It's Bush's fault. Then 2004, it's all Bush's fault. Then 2008, it's Bush's and Cheney's fault. Then CNN, 2012, stop blaming Obama. It's not his fault. Then in 2012, sure, gas prices are high, but it's not as bad as you think. CNN 2012, America, quit whining about high gas prices. 2018, it's Trump's fault. 2020, now it's Trump's fault. Low oil prices are causing oil company bankruptcies. Then CNN 2021, Biden can't do anything about it. It's not his fault. Okay. All right. So back to the Washington Post. Republicans hope this widespread confusion will turn the midterms into a referendum on painful economic conditions and, by extension, Democratic leadership. They're counting on voters to protect their hopes and dreams, including their wildest fantasies about cheaper gas. I don't know about you, but I'm not thinking of, the people behind the counter at the gas station all dressed up in something lacy and revealing. It's not exactly a fantasy for me. Gas prices being low. No, we had that just a year and a half ago. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but when Trump was in, we were for the first time in my lifetime energy independent. We didn't have to worry about Saudi Arabia or anybody else because we were independent and had cheap gas for the first time in my life. And who got that done? Oh, Donald Trump. Oh, but wait a minute. He doesn't have any levers to do that, does he? There are relatively few tools, says the Washington Post, that the president and Congress can deploy to help boost oil production. What? Here's an idea. End ESG. End the administration's war on oil. Here's another idea. You really want to get rid of oil? Fine, get rid of oil. But how about we take a quick break? How about we just break for a minute, slow this down until we have the other things that are going to replace oil? They also can't control or moderate overall inflation. Isn't that what the Federal Reserve's job is? That is their only job. I know they've taken on so much more. That is their job. Their job is to keep inflation under control. Well, the things that they do have probably won't make a huge dent in price growth, but they could help a little on the margin. Unfortunately, these are not the things that either party is proposing right now. Democrats are grandstanding about greed and considering silly stuff such as export bans and price controls. Meanwhile, by the way, those price controls won't seem silly when they happen. Republicans demagogue about President Biden's supposed war on fossil fuels and socialism. His supposed war on fossil fuels? That's what he campaigned on. Washington Post says neither party has a serious plan for dealing with inflation overall or gas prices specifically. You know what? We don't need the Republican Party. All you need to do is just listen to the people. Are we a republic? Do we have representatives of the people? Because I can tell you, most of the people in America would say, you know what? Let's start producing some more of our oil. Most of America would say, I want to go green if we can. That's great. But let's not sacrifice ourselves on the god of global warming. I'd like the country to continue. I'd like my children to be able to eat. Oh, and inflation? Here's an idea. Stop spending money. You don't have it. No one's borrowing it. Nobody's giving us the money anymore. We're borrowing it from the Fed, meaning we're just printing more. Assuming that Russia's war in Ukraine continues to disrupt every energy market, that is such bullcrap, I can't take it. Then voters realistically face a choice between high gas prices and the rest of the Democratic agenda, or high gas prices and the rest of the Republican agenda. So what it's worth, let's consider what the rest of the agenda is for each party. Biden and fellow Democrats once promised a cradle-to-grave expansion of the safety net, plus measures intended to combat climate change. Love or hate this program, I very much like it, but it's no longer terribly relevant to the choices the voters face this November. Yes, it is. Climate change. That's what's causing all of this. This and the hostile takeover of the free market through something called the Great Reset. But Democratic infighting has considerably scaled back their ambitions, giving constraints laid out by Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, who wield critical votes for getting anything done. Democrats have at best have a shot at more modest packages focused on climate, prescription drugs, and maybe some tax increases on high earners and corporations. But what do the Republicans stand for? Their national leaders won't say. Yeah, I know. Shh, keep it secret. You know why? Because our national leaders agree with a lot of the stuff that is going on with the Democratic Party. They don't represent the people. Anyway, even when asked directly, they keep it secret. Their state-level rising stars are mostly focused on fighting with Mickey Mouse and drag queens. Really? Are we? Is that how you put it? When our parents are called terrorists for saying, "Hey, I don't want this Marxist and sex stuff in school." You dismiss it by saying we're fighting with Mickey Mouse and drag queens. But if you look at GOP actions taken over the past several years, including when they had unified control of the federal government, you get a sense of what Republicans are likely to prioritize. Republicans mostly seem to care about tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations. Don't even start with corporations. Do you think the corporations are the friend of anyone who is on the right? Anyone who doesn't believe in all of this progressive bullcrap? I mean, check the ad campaigns. But if you look at the GOP actions, they just want to find ways to repeal Obamacare or otherwise reduce access to health care. For example, by slashing Medicaid. I know, as somebody who has voted Republican, and I myself am not a Republican because I don't want to be tainted with the smell of all of the death, but I am all for cutting back on hospital. I say we close hospitals in poor areas. Let's just close them down. Kids, medicine, please. Not if they're defective. Oh, wait a minute. That sounds like a progressive agenda. They only care about installing judges who will roll back reproductive rights. Listen to this. They care about supporting a president who has used the powers of the state to further his own political and financial interests. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Let me give you a couple quick stories here. Let me just point them out real quick here. Story number one, headline. Buttigieg says the feds have power to force airlines to hire more workers amid travel delays. Let me see here. I remember the Democrats were very upset at Ronald Reagan because he forced union workers to go back into work so we could keep the skies open because none of them would work the control towers. So they had a real problem with that. Buttigieg is saying he can tell the airlines, you don't have enough workers. Hire them. Where in the Constitution can you find that? That's fascism. Oh, here's the other. This one from the Washington Examiner, Biden's bid to expand Obamacare. The Biden administration is unlawfully trying to expand Obamacare. The Internal Revenue Service has published a proposed regulation that would make an additional 5 million people eligible for premium subsidies. The IRS proposal is unlawful, but the administration will do it anyway. Here's the background. Obamacare statute created premium subsidies for people who buy insurance through exchanges. Congress restricted those subsidies to people with low and moderate incomes or had no other source of health insurance. In addition to Medicare and Medicaid recipients, 155 million Americans with job-based coverage are prohibited from claiming the credits. The law carved out one exception. If a company plan requires a full-time employee to contribute more than 9.5% of household income for self-only coverage, then the worker and his or her family members are eligible for the subsidies. So this has gone back and forth with Congress, and they won't do it because it will add $45 billion to the deficit just in the next 10 years. It's called the family glitch. The Urban Institute estimates the regulation would reduce the number of uninsured by around 190,000. Because why? At an average cost of $4.5 billion, taxpayers are going to pay $23,684 per newly insured person each year, which is kind of not so good. So it would never pass Congress, and so now the IRS is going to do it, even though they know it's illegal. So what was it they care about supporting a president who's used the powers of the state to further his own political and financial interests? Financial interests is China. Please. They care about supporting a president whose few purported diplomatic achievements, the world was headed towards peace. The Middle East was having peace like I've never seen in my lifetime. In retrospect, they largely look like an excuse to meet potential investors who might fund Trump aide's new private equity invent. Are you kidding me? This guy who's schlepping his son with him everywhere he goes. And you're blaming this on Trump? They care about defending at all costs a president who cheered on the mob seeking to hang his own vice president. Speaking of mobs, how about the people who are threatening to kill our Supreme Court justices? Because that kind of sounds like the same thing to me. And what is the White House saying? Nothing. What are the Democrats doing? Reluctantly voting to give the Supreme Court justices and their family security. And then they have this one. And then they care about undermining the integrity of our election system and overturning the will of the voters if and when tallies don't go their own way. Oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna start vomiting blood. Holy cow. Election deniers are already laying the groundwork to overturn the will of the voters in the future through legal and administrative changes at the state and federal levels. They're only changing it back to what it was, the special exemption for COVID. Oh, I mean, how do they sleep at night? How do they sleep at night? Well, I guess if it's in the winter, they probably sleep well because it's very, very warm in hell.